This is the Big Fish Cares Podcast. Big Fish Cares Podcast. And here's your host, Benny Fisher.
We're continuing our summer series on Ben Fisher's friends in the NFT space. And today we got the guy that kind of started it all off. Most of you guys know that Gary Vee is the one that kind of got in my head to look into NFTs and VeeFriends. But when I went on that journey, I met this first individual in the Discord. His name's Ron Jordan. He's my guest today. But a couple fun facts about Ron. First of all, he only lives like an hour away from me. So he's in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania, which I find fascinating. There's 7 billion people in this world. And the first creature that I found in the NFT space happened to be in the same part of southwestern Pennsylvania. So that was pretty cool. And then we're going to get into a lot more in today's episode about Ron's kind of personal story, his journey. He runs a podcast as well. He's got an NFT project called NFDaddys. He's really passionate about educating the community. So without further ado, my friend Ron Jordan, welcome to the show.
Yo, Benny, thank you for having me, my man. Thank you. I tell you what, I'm starting to blush over here with that type of intro.
Well, I mean, it's cool, right? Because, like, I don't know, we're all part of
How weird.
We're all part of stories, right?
Yeah.
And for my story of getting into this NFT space, we all have our own unique story, and I think mine's like the coolest story because it's mine, right?
Of course.
But for me, like getting into that Discord reminded me of being like 14 years old, trying to figure out how Prodigy was working. I don't know how old you are, but like back in the early days in like 93, 94, 95, we had this like Prodigy that came like before AOL. And there was like all this like weird chat rooms and stuff.
Yeah, I was circa AOL. I mean, it reminds me of the chat rooms, age, sex, location, like all of that stuff. And then we evolved into AIM, which is sort of like DMs now. Yeah, dude, like I'm totally with it. I was rocking CDs back in the day, like the AOL minutes that you got. Like I would just like siphon those off of my friends whenever possible. Because I was always an adopter of this like online chatting and stuff. So I've always been a fan.
Well, that's the one thing that we all have in common. I found that every single person that I've become friends with now in the NFT space, we've all been doing like this nerdy techie stuff before it was actually mainstream. But now we're all talking about it. Before it was kind of like, oh yeah, we didn't really talk about it. Didn't really have a platform. Now we all have platforms to like, yell it from the mountaintops. And I find that everybody's got, we got, it's like that early adoption curve where we're like in the top 1% to 2% of people that like kind of get into stuff. And then by the time mainstream gets here, like we're already being something new after that.
Yeah,
like,
we're bored.
Yeah, right now as we record this podcast, so the summer of 2022, NFTs, Ethereum, Bitcoin, everything's in the tank, right? Money wise, right? But we're also just excited about it as we were last year because we know what the technology is all about. So like, regardless of what it's worth right now, it's going to take the rest of the world a few years, maybe 10 years to actually catch up to with what we're doing today. And that's why I'm really passionate about just kind of staying on it, at least keeping awareness to it. Am I going to, sometimes my excitement goes up and down with, the excitement of other people. I feed off other people. How do you feel about that whole market downturn? The excitement of people's kind of went down.
I enjoy it because there's a lot less noise going on right now. So it allows us as a project, as NFDaddys NFT project goes, like it just allows us to build in a lot less like the community trying to keep up with the Joneses almost, where we're trying to like do this to be in, quote unquote, is like,
yeah,
it was really annoying when all that was happening last year. And we would contemplate during our meetings. We'd be like, well, should we do this because this is hot and that'll help us sell things? And it was just like, you know what? We got to stick to our ethos. And like, we're just here. We're here to educate. We're here to have a good time. We're not really here to sell a bunch of tokens. We're really here to enhance the technology. So this downturn is allowing us to really focus in on some practical applications of NFTs and Web3, which has been a really fun experience with the team that we have, especially bringing on a couple new developers. We've been able to really spread our wings and dive into more real world applications that's going to ultimately feed into the next generation of adoption from like Web 2 companies coming in, or even like I look at startup companies using Web 3 the way that we're starting to build right now over at NFDaddys. I'm looking forward to that next evolution of it. But I don't really care what Ethereum dips down to. I don't really care if NFTs are going to be hot for another 3 years. Like, we know the tech now, so it doesn't matter to me or the guys on the team or anybody in our community. It doesn't really matter to us.
Do you ever look at, like, I mean, I'm looking at it like, I just sold my Hellcat today I sold that high, right? Because used car prices are high. Now all I want to do is like go buy a bunch of Ethereum for $1,200 a piece.
You ain't kidding.
Like, well, that's what I'm saying. See, I'm just doing the flip, right? So I do like to monitor that so I can like look at buying opportunities, right? But let's get back to, I want to get into the practical applications, the real world stuff, because I think like too many of us, we use terms in the space like Web 2, Web 3, NFT, Metaverse, like average people they don't even know what that means. But first, let's get some context on who you are as a person and give us a little bit of background on your personal story.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my personal story is I'm a former social worker turned electrical salesman turned entrepreneur. I've always been super big into self-help and like growth mindset and all of those types of things. So I've always been really an adopter of like unique hobbies, unique pastimes, things like that, and even jobs in general. So like that's always been something of mine that I've done. I come from a small town, farm town really. We had one blinker light. So like everything that I do nowadays is like so different from the way I grew up. Like the way I grew up was my family had a farm. We lived in town, but like we had a farm on the outskirts. So like we would ride 4-wheelers and go farming and fish and hunt and things like that. So like that's where I come from. And to come into Web3 that's so techy and just like the difference between Web 2, Web 3, just to like dovetail into that, Web 3 is really about ownership. So like as we progress through here, Web 2 was about like social connecting, and Web 3 is really about ownership of that. So I wanted to put that out there. But anyhow, like that's my background. I got an MBA from Florida International University.
Dude, that's crazy. So like, so you talked about growing up in the country, talked about growing up with one traffic light. What kind of profession did your mom and dad do?
So my dad was a student for most of the time that they were together. And then he turned into a nurse. He went to school
just like you turned into a web guy. Yeah.
Yeah. He turned into a nurse. And he's been doing that ever since. My mom was a medical transcriptionist. So she was always on the computer, typing and things like that. And that's really how I got my start into computers in general. Was she would have computers from her jobs, and, you know, she would either get fired or leave her job because she had like a bit of a troubled history there. But we would have these computers, so I would be able to like rinse and reuse them and use them for whatever I wanted to. So gaming or AOL and chatting and stuff like that.
Yeah, so when you were a kid growing up and you had like this access to like the internet and like some of these programs, you know, what were your friends doing at school? Like, what was the typical, like, what they were probably playing like standardized video games. They probably weren't doing more of the computer stuff, right? If they're into,
they were.
My friends, like my friends were like outside playing football.
Yeah, I remember whenever I first got Sega, I got Sonic, and I like never had a normal life after that. Like I would go outside but I always found myself, even like younger days, I would like be playing on my own, and everybody else would be like building their clubhouses and stuff, and I would have my own. So like I was always a little bit more of an outsider than I was like in the group, which was interesting.
Did you have brothers or sisters?
I look back on things.
Yeah. It's fun to reflect. Do you have brothers or sisters?
Yeah, I got 2 younger brothers.
All right, that's cool. And then obviously you went to college, right, after high school? I mean, Seems like it.
Yeah, I was like I was one of the first to go to college, and then definitely the first in my family to get a graduate degree.
And what did you, when you like left high school and you're like, what am I going to be when I grow up? Like, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I wanted to be a professional baseball player when I grew up. I thought I was going somewhere with baseball. But ended up, I couldn't throw above 90 miles an hour, and I was a righty, and I was short, and I couldn't hit. So had to figure it out.
You could have switched arms and like tried to throw lefty. If you could throw 90 and be a lefty, you'd have been in business.
Dude, there's a quarterback right now that's coming up through the high school program. He can throw lefty and righty. It's in like
so he'll be able to play. Will he be able to pitch like back-to-back games because like his arm will be?
Well, he's a quarterback, not a pitcher. So I'm just saying like ambidextrous people. Yeah, he's able to like throw righty and lefty. It was incredible. Like throwing BBs. It was insane. I watched him on ESPN the other day.
That's wild. I mean, just think if he was a baseball player that could like throw just as effective righty and lefty, he'd get double the contract in Major League Baseball. Instead of making like Kershaw, doesn't he make like $40 million a year? He could make $80 million a year because he'd have the righty version and the lefty version.
Yeah, right.
What if he could switch? Yeah, well, what if he could just switch it up in the middle of a game too? I was thinking like just go like all game, go right, go all game, go left, because you'd be able to pitch like every 3 days then, because your arm would be. Well, I don't know, though, if you could do that, because you'd be throwing...
Now, the legs and the core and everything, but I'm just saying, like, even mid-game, mid-batter, just throw out a left, like, go lefty, then go righty, then go lefty. Like, so, could you imagine as a hitter? Yeah,
you could be the ultimate bullpen guy, because you'd be able to pitch 3 or 4 innings a couple times a week, because you're using both arms, and like you're just, like, switching it. You have to get one of those gloves designed to where, like, you could just put the same glove on each hand.
Yeah.
I mean, but look at Jim Abbott. Jim Abbott didn't even have an arm, like, and he was able to like still put a glove and field and like, yeah, that was wild. What a cool little thing that we talked about today on the podcast. I could talk about that all day, baseball. But let's get back into that. So, all right, so you went to college, you wanted to be a baseball player, but when did you did you ever have any jobs like in college or high school? Or?
Yeah, so early on, actually, I ended up not playing basketball my senior year because I got a job at Finish Line at the mall.
Oh, yeah, selling shoes.
I was actually in the back receiving in goods and stocking the back end shelves. And this was during a time when LeBron James was brand new in the scene. You still had the Lance Armstrong bracelets, like all that stuff. So I got to see all of that material coming in before anybody else got to see it, which was super cool. And then I got my start selling shoes. And it's funny, and again, reflection, like we were just talking about. Part of why I was so successful at selling the shoes was a manufacturer named Brooks actually educated us on how to sell their shoe. And ever since then, I've just been like an education nut about like just certain things to be able to then assist people and helping them out, kind of listening to their needs and their desires, and then really putting them in the right situation. And I did that with shoes early on. Funny enough,
I sold shoes for a time.
I was a pizza delivery guy. I did a lot of construction work. I was a roofer. I was a carpenter. I was a stonemason. I was a block mason. I was a laborer. I mean, you name it. Excavator, put in septic systems. Like, I've done a lot of things.
What was your first real job, you would say? Like your first, like
health benefits, all that stuff.
Yeah, I guess. I'm like, it sounds like you had a lot of real jobs, but like, it sounds like you had so many of them that like, were you just like showing up when people needed you, or like did you actually go get it?
This was from I was like 14 years old until probably 21. I had like those odds and ends jobs. I'd work 2 jobs most of the time. Like I'd work, I worked for the gas company for a little while too. So I worked for the gas company during the day, and then in the evenings I would work at either Pizza Joe's delivering pizzas, or I'd work at Finish Line. So like I would always have 2 jobs just to keep things going there. But my first job would be, I'd say Mars Home for Youth was like my first real job whenever I was 21, had health insurance and all that stuff.
You're
So,
like,
yeah.
hey, look at me. I got a real job. I got a real paycheck.
Yeah.
It's not just cash under the table, you know? It's like,
You know?
yeah, I know how those contractors can be sometimes. So that's cool.
Yeah, I ran a group home there for like 3 years. I ran a group home for at-risk youth, 8 years old to 18 years old. It was an all-girls dorm, and then I also ran an all-boys dorm during that time.
What made you get into that?
It was a good opportunity while I was going to school. I was going for criminal justice system, so it just sort of fit in line with that. One of my buddies during a summer class, he told me about an opening they had, so I went and applied, and I got the job.
Okay, so it was really just, you know, social worker kind of thing. Got a good job opportunity. Well, you mentioned too earlier when we talked that you've been big on growth mindset, always improving yourself, and you know, me becoming friends with you over the last year, I've kind of noticed that. You know, I don't think you've ever actually even had to tell me. I've just watched some of the things that you're into and some of the things you talk about on your podcast, some of the different hobbies that you do with jiu-jitsu and running. Tell me about where does all that come from? You know, because I'm starting to put this story together on Ron Jordan, and I'm thinking, all right, small town, you know, kind of country, you know, trying to run away from that and try to like, you know, do tech and, you know, cool stuff. And then like hard work along the way, lots of hard work I hear. And then the growth mindset, like where does that come from with you?
So it actually started with my buddy Sean Thomas. He got me into reading books, like Think Big, Grow Rich, a couple of those types of books during my first stint in multi-level marketing with Amway.
Woo!
And
there's a little bit. Yeah, I didn't know we could get a little MLM in there. That shoe job selling shoes ruined you. You're a sucker for sales ever since.
I have been. I'm still a sales guy. I was always very interested in, and this is going to sound really bad, but like being as lazy as possible, but still accomplishing as much as I possibly could. So optimizing myself. And through reading and through like really understanding like my mind and how it works and how it can effectively change others and like to assist me in my goals and assist them in their goals and like have this cohesive community, that was what I was really after, especially as I was trying to build that program with the girls. It was just like, how can I most effectively do this job? And it had to be with everybody, but I wasn't good at working with everybody. So I had to learn how to do that. And really, Sean showed me the ropes and like told me who to watch and who to listen to and which books to read. And another guy, Rich Bianchi, like between those two guys, like that was the recipe, and that was my initial like foray into this growth mindset. And I haven't looked back since. I love it.
Well, and there's a couple, so it wasn't like there was some big like, I don't know, come to Jesus moment or like some type of like bad like adversity that you had to overcome to like really like say.
There sort of was. Like I got fired from that Mars Home for Youth job because I lost my shit on somebody.
Okay.
And ever since that day, I will never be the same person again.
Tell me why.
Because I hurt somebody that I cared about, and during that moment, I lost sight of what I was really doing. And from that moment on, I was always setting out to never lose sight of where I'm going ever again. So if that's giving myself time to process, giving myself time to listen, I do those things now. And I set out on a journey. This was 8 years ago now, 10 years ago, something like that. And like, I will never do that to somebody again, ever.
Wow, that's a lot of wisdom there. You guys, hope you guys are listening to that. He was definitely aware of the situation when it happened. Probably felt terrible about it, knowing everything I know about Ron. Probably got caught up into it. You know, everyone has emotional. We're all emotional beings. It's how we respond to those emotions that, you know, I think separate the the greats from the not so greats.
Well, I mean, here's the story. Like, the story goes, during the time, like, these kids would work through a program, and during certain levels of your program, you got to go home on home visits. Well, whenever you didn't do what you were supposed to do, you got put on restrictions. Well, one of my staff members took a restricted kid to go on a home pass and, like, took them as a rider with them. So, like, they got privileges that they shouldn't have, and they were a flight risks, which meant that they were a runaway risk because they had just run away the week before. So, like, I just couldn't believe that mistake was made, and it was a time where I needed other things to be done and not worry about this thing, and I just lost it. I couldn't believe that it had happened, but then I couldn't believe the way that I reacted to it.
Well, that's the one thing that we can control. You can't control. We know this now, right? We almost feel like we're like old wise guys, but at the end of the day, we're not. We're very humble about like where we've come from and where we're going. But back then, you're like you just couldn't you couldn't fathom what happened, but you couldn't control that. You didn't do that. You could have only controlled your response, right? And now we know that, right? As adults and people that have been punched in the face a couple times. And yes, I'm glad it only took one time for you, because for me, I feel like it probably happened to me like 10 or 15 or 20 times before I started to like get a little bit wiser. You're a little bit sharper than I am, Ron Jordan. So that's pretty cool. But, so that's good. I mean, like, and you talked a little bit about, knowing where you're going, and a lot of, I talk about being a visionary myself, talking about vision, right? And understanding what your vision is and getting that vision crystal clear. So then that way you can align yourself with people that fit into that vision.
Yep.
Whether that's, people that you choose to be around, your friends and your family, or your coworkers, people that you do projects with. I know that you've got, you got a day job now. What's your main gig now? Where do you sell electrical?
Yeah, I sell high voltage electrical equipment to all the utilities. If you pay your bill to a utility, they're likely our customer. Yeah.
There you go. So, I mean, like, that's something that's always going to be around. And
my grandpa told me from an early age, he says, you should either work for the electric company or the gas company. And now I work with both. So I listen to that wise man.
Well, it's true. I mean, like, I'll never forget working with a couple of homeowners doing what we do at Big Fish Contracting in roofing and siding and gutters. I remember a lady that told me she was retired from AT&T, and like, this lady was not poor. This lady had she was very quiet, humble, very but she had a pile. I mean, like, everything that she had was nice. Everything was and she's been retired for like 20 or 30 years. But someone told me that people that work at utility companies, especially back in the day, I don't know how it is today, but back in the day, they were great jobs. They were well taken care of. They got great pensions. I'm sure, just like with everything else in life, it's probably changed a little bit. But yeah,
if you could stick it out in utilities, you get treated well at the end.
How do you feel about everything going solar? Like, is that good or bad? I mean, I guess it's just changing.
I think I think it's a renewable resource that gets a pretty good name that it shouldn't. It takes a huge carbon footprint to actually create it. It takes a huge carbon footprint to destruct them, and they start losing their capacity after 10 years, and they really don't generate very much energy. So I think it's a Band-Aid on a worse problem. We're too reliant on carbon or fossil fuels rather, and the easy thing to do was solar. But in my opinion, really the best way is water. Water's the way to go. Hydroelectric, as well as there's these really cool methods where you can create energy just by the movement of the water. That's something to take into consideration, like wave technology and those types of things. But yeah, I don't like solar. I shouldn't say I don't like solar. I don't think that it's a remedy for what we're going through. But I do think in countries where you don't have a grid, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's beautiful
so
because you don't have to run lines. You just have an isolated location where you can get power. And I think in those circumstances, it's beautiful. It's perfect. It relieves so much stress on those communities.
So would that be like the silver lining? And like, I totally understand what you're saying about, to create the solar energy, they had to like, burn through all this carbon to kind of get it. But now that they got it, the silver lining is, someone in Africa who doesn't have a lot of water coming out somewhere, doesn't have like doesn't have
right.
The grid that we have, boom, they can put like something here, and then we could take that, you can get energy, and then we could also get you a purification system for the dirty water that you do have, clean it up. Now you got energy and clean water, and it's like, like without cords.
Yes.
Like we're working, right? Like, and it is fascinating, right? It might not be good for America right now, but it is good for, those other parts of the world. So
yeah,
we could probably do a whole other podcast on renewable energy and stuff like that. And I'd just be the guy asking questions. I wouldn't be able to add much to it other than I think we are going to start doing some solar roofing at Big Fish, only because they have new technology where we can, inside the shingle now, they can put the, like the solar, it's not a panel anymore. It's going to be like the solar cells.
Yeah.
Then that can be wired up, and then people can save a lot of money on their electric bill. So when you get a new roof, you basically can almost eliminate your electric bill by getting a new roof. So it's kind of the second biggest thing I think people are going to be doing. They've been trying to do their cars now for a while with Tesla. And then the people that are interested in that, those early adopters, are going to start getting their roofs. And then, one day your driveway will be solar, I would think, anywhere that there's, flat things that can kind of radiate in the sun. But in Pittsburgh, thinking like the sun can't come out that much. Like I don't.
Yeah, anytime we can harness potential energy is going to be useful in some sort of application. So storage is always the problem. So once we solve how to capture it, then you got to solve how to store it, and then we have no problem using it. So
yeah, well, that's kind of what we're doing right now. I mean, I got a bright light shining on me. I got plugs all over the place. I got sound stuff. We got computers running. Let's get back into Ron Jordan current day. First of all, too, I know you have a little family up there in Slippery Rock. You tell us about how Ron Jordan got, hitched up with a family.
Yeah. So, I met my wife down in Pittsburgh. This was now 12 years ago.
All good things happen in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, through a mutual friend. Our mutual friend was moving. We both decided to help her move, and we met on moving day. And then after that, we had a couple dates, and then, I moved in with her, I'd say like 6 months after we were dating. So it was pretty wild. And I moved down to Pittsburgh, and then we decided that we were going to move out of the city once my daughter was getting to the age of like going to school and things like that. And we don't have any kids together, but I have a stepson now. He's in the Navy. And then B, my daughter, she, her mom and I split up when she was super young. And anyhow, we moved up to Slippery Rock. We wanted a place that was sort of like in between our families. So my wife, she's from that Reynolds area, and I'm from the Carson City, Shakora area. So that was like a good middle ground. And we plopped down in Slippery Rock because that's where I got my undergrad from too. And I was familiar with the area, and I knew that it had good school systems. So that's where we ended up. We've been there ever since.
That's cool, man. I know your wife. She's a big she's a big supporter of the NFT space. I know she's out there doing a lot of education. Similar, you two
she's
both
incredible.
You both too have similar, like, you guys are different, but you guys both are trying to educate everyone, right? And almost in different ways. I know she's an attorney, so she comes from more of like the law and the legal side, right? And you come from, you're trying to teach people how to build it from like the bottom and like kind of grow it, right, the right way. And I want to get into NFDaddys because, we could talk about your podcast a little bit too, but let's talk about your podcast. Let's go in order. How did you come up with the idea of the Stars podcast? How long have you been doing it? Where can people go to listen to it?
Oh, for sure. I've been doing it for about 3 years, and the idea came up from Aaron Diaz, my buddy from Krav Maga. He had messaged me and said, "Hey, do you want to do a podcast together?" I had already been talking to Alyssa about getting a podcast together, and we had a conversation. He was like, what do you think about Stars podcast? And I was like, well, what does it mean? He goes, straight talk about random shit. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So we started a podcast together about 3 years ago. He's since gone and done other things. He's no longer on the podcast, but I just kept it going. And if you want to listen to it, it's thestarspodcast.com. There's about, I don't know, 180 episodes at this point, where we focus on growth mindset and self-leadership.
That's awesome. So I didn't know it was an acronym. See, shame on me for not knowing that it was an acronym. Say that acronym again. STARS. Yes. STARS. What's it stand for?
Straight talk about random shit.
I just realized that when you said that, I was like, oh. I got thinking like somebody's a star. We're gonna talk about astrology. You know, I'm like, what's going on there?
It may need a rebrand at some point, but I like it. I just keep it going.
Listen, man.
That means I would have to like create a whole new everything.
Well, I'm sure everybody that you have on the podcast, do you do interviews or like do you just like talk randomly about stuff or?
So everything is interview based. I will like jump on and just talk about random stuff here and there, but I mostly reserve that for like my TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that. If I'm gonna just like go off on a rant or a random thing, I'll save that for just like social media, not the actual podcast. That way people don't get confused about what to expect when they get onto the podcast.
Yeah, so the people that you're interviewing, I mean, obviously, if you're going to get an interview for the Stars podcast, they must be a star. That's what they're thinking, probably. So you've definitely probably helped elevate everybody in that game. So after the Stars podcast, you still got that going on. Tell me about, and I'm going to chop up the word, Rocinante.
Yeah, you got it.
Did I say it? Rocinante.
Yeah.
This is how I first found you, right, in the Discord. Like you started doing like this stuff with Rocinante and like you added me to the project and you guys were playing these like games in there and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And tell me about Rocinante.
So Rocinante, if anybody is a Don Quixote fan or is a fan of the Expanse, Don Quixote had a donkey it was a donkey and its name was Rocinante. And it was like this old beat up donkey that was supposed to be absolutely no good, but Don Quixote needed a companion to carry his stuff on his travels. So ended up Rocinante was the name of that donkey, and they ended up doing all types of epic shit, and that's why that piece of it. And then also where I came to it, I also like Don Quixote is like this recurring theme in my life as well. Like it's random that it comes up, but when it comes up, I listen, I pay attention. And it came up during a book that I was reading, which is called the Expanse Series. And anybody who is familiar with like Amazon movie or Amazon TV shows, it's big on there. And what it is, it's like this sci-fi show where there's Earthers, there's Martians, and there's Belters. And there's always like this feud amongst each other. And then throughout that, they end up having a new nemesis, which is like these ring gates. Anyhow, the main space shuttle on the show is called Rocinante. So I love that show. I love the story. It's like this old beat up thing that's not supposed to be any good. And lo and behold, it's like the best thing you've ever seen. And, that's why I use it. So
what do you do with like that? When I see you in Discord, like, because it's separate than NFDaddys. I had a hard time figuring out what was happening here. Yeah. Just because I'm not that. Like, I don't think I was that hip to everything. And I'm like, so it's really just kind of like your own personal like little brand and company.
Yeah, it's my thing. It's me as a person. Like.
Gotcha.
NFDaddys is a project. It's a business.
There's like 5 other people involved, right?
Yeah, it's not just me. Right. I'm Rocinante. Like that's my persona online. Like that's my shit on Xbox, on everything that I play on. I'm Rocinante.
I got it. So that's like you know the Fisher Benny Fisher, Big Fish Benny. Like that's mine, right? Yeah. And then you're Rocinante. All right. And I wanted to always come up with a really cool name like that. But because like I didn't want to get confused on what I was and I didn't want to change it, I always went with like combinations of like my name and stuff like that. So I don't even know if I could spell Rocinante without looking at it. Hey, Mom, I need to go back to school to learn how to spell. Right. It's all good,
Spanish,
man.
so.
Do you plan on doing anything with that? Like, what do you do? Like, what do you do with that? Just.
It's just the name of my like holding company for everything that I do. Is like that's the Rocinante Enterprises will be the company that oversees everything else that I do, like on a personal level, like with my running or jujitsu. If I ever monetize any of that stuff, the podcast, like all of that falls under that umbrella.
That's so smart. I think that now did you think about that stuff before you married the attorney, or was that after you married the attorney? Like you start to learn, like, hey, I got to structure this stuff at the top, and
it was after, but it wasn't like a conversation she and I had. Other than, hey, if we monetize anything that we're doing, like we need to have a company. So that's why we opened that Rocinante Enterprise.
We could do a whole podcast on business structure and things like that, but I don't want to bore anybody. So it is important though. Because you definitely want to be, but what's more important though. First is to get sales and to get income, rather than just set up a bunch of LLCs and then not do anything with them. Right.
Here's the thing too: is like, yeah, you could set up sales and all of that and get money flowing in, but at the same time, if you're doing anything to grow that business, keeping the receipts and having something to bill against is so important.
You got to have the expenses, but I do find that there's two types of business owners. There's the one that can go out and just set the world on fire and get a bunch of sales and not keep track of anything. Then there's the kind that like think they got to go to LegalZoom, do all the paperwork, and then they actually never create a product or sell a service.
I'm the first guy.
Yeah, me too.
I suck at like you want me to do an expense report. I have to like cut off half of my day, shut off my messages, like do not bother me because I have to focus on this because my brain will like. I'll have 17 different tabs open. I'm like, shit, I was doing an expense report. Damn it.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. That's why like we try to create companies and we try to hire those people, you know, that can do that part, right?
Exactly.
Because I'm not good at that part. All right, let's get to the main attraction. I really want to talk about what you're doing with NFDaddys, and then we'll wrap it up at the end of the show. Talk about a little bit about VeeFriends, about VeeCon, because that's the fun part. But let's really talk about this project, NFDaddys. Talk about the vision for it, how you got together with the group of guys. You know, make sure you talk about all the people that are involved with the project.
For sure,
let people know what it's all about. Because I think this is if you're starting to get into NFTs or even want to learn more about it. And again, I've seen a lot of stuff out there. Here's one thing I can tell you, people. I'll put my own reputation, okay? I won't put my own reputation on NFTs in general because I don't really know, but I put my reputation in on people. And I know that at the end of the day, like I've done enough watching of Ron Jordan to know that like you're in a safe place if you enter his metaverse, you know, and you enter his space of education and what he's trying to do to just educate people. And people always ask me, oh, Big Fish, what's the best way to get started? What's the best? I'm always over here trying to come up with like, you know, oh, hey, do your 50 hours of research, all the stuff that Gary kind of like spit back out to me. And they always say, well, what website? I'm like, I don't know, dude. I started with like, you know, VeeFriends and started following Gary, and then I just started going down a rabbit trail. But like, if you don't like respond well with Gary, you know, that's not your type of person. Like, I don't know even what to tell you. So what I start to tell people now, I'm going to get a lot better at it this year instead of like not having an answer or kind of just tell them, oh, figure it out on your own. Cause that's worthless. They leave me direction. They leave me and they go, oh yeah, Big Fish. He's got a secret. He won't tell me what it is. Like he knows all about NFTs, but he won't tell me. I'm like, no, man. Like I don't know. I keep figuring it out, but this is where you want to go. You want to go to NFDaddys and get educated on it. And you can go and just hang out for free. You can go out and invest, you know, couple $100. You can go out like me and put a couple $1,000 in. Like it's whatever you want to do to kind of be part of the community. Go ahead and tell us about all of that.
Yeah, NFDaddys is a family-friendly learning environment. We are all-inclusive. We're trying to create the next generation of Web3 developers, digital artists, business owners. To just like I said earlier, Web3 is about ownership. So we want you to be able to own your time, own your projects, own your IP. And that's really what we're teaching you how to do properly. So we teach you how to go from idea, so from concept to launch and everything in between. And I met all of the co-founders through Discord. I was listening in. It was funny enough. Marcos So here are the co-founders: Marcos, David, Durant, Steven, and myself. And I met Marcos and Steven through a mental well-being clubhouse room, actually. And then we furthered that conversation inside of a Discord chat, and we decided that we should build a project out. And funny enough, now through NFDaddys, we're carrying out what we were going to before now. And what we're doing now is with NFDoodles. So NFDoodles is a completely community generative art project that's going to be an NFT that all folks who have gone through our Web3 workshops will be able to mint for free. So we're still holding workshops. So if you're listening to this and you want to sign up, go to nfdaddys.com. You'll be able to follow the links inside of there and sign up and attend one of those courses. And then throughout that extravaganza of meeting up with Marcos and Steven, I was figuring out, like, we need more pieces to this puzzle, because we didn't really have all the pieces as far as like a Web3 development goes. So that's whenever I got into talking with Durant, and then I needed to understand a little bit more about kind of the traits that we were creating inside of our NFT. So I got into the Fame Lady Squad Discord, and then I found AWO, which is David. And we were 5 dads. We all shared that dad commonality. So we were all already sort of looking for something to do inside of Web3. And once we assembled, it was like really pretty much immediate. I've never worked in a group setting where everybody gets along and doesn't agree with each other on everything. Like, it was really fun to like spitball ideas with those guys and like really come to the final product of NFDaddys. It was so interesting. Like, Durant, our first Web3 developer, I messaged him after I was in on a project. I was looking through it. I saw that they had the Web Connect. I couldn't figure out how to do the Web Connect, like connect your wallet to Mint. He was the dev on this one project. I jumped in the Discord. I asked them, I said, hey, who created this? They gave me his name. I go and I message him. He messages me back, and I said, hey, we're starting this project. It's all about education and security in the Web3 space. We're all dads. We'd love to, pick your brain a little bit if you would mind. We're trying to understand how to do the Connect wallet. He was like, absolutely, I'm totally in, but I'm actually packing up my bags to go have my first kid right now. So like the serendipitous nature of like the conversations that we were having was like, it was meant to be. We just needed to keep going forward with it. And then we launched in October 15th in 2021. We thought it was very important to be like that class of 21 in the NFT space. And since then we've rode the ups and downs of the market. We set out from a very, very early stage where we said, we're not going to worry about how many of these tokens we sell. We're just going to continue the mission of educating and keeping people safe. And while we're doing that, we're also having a lot of fun inside of the metaverse and inside of these like digital areas where you can meet up. Think of them as like the bar, but it's digital. So like you're going to these places and you're still meeting people. You're talking with them. You're wearing clothes that, you've been airdropped and things like that. And you're dressed up and you're at this place and you're talking and you're communicating. So we do that. We do the workshops that are Zoom calls. We have interactive website now. To teach you everything that you need to know about web security. This is sometimes it's just Web 2 stuff. Don't click on links that you're not familiar with. Make sure that the URLs are correct. Make sure that you're going through trusted sites. Only click on links that you are verified, and all of those things. That's very Web 2 based, but we brought it into Web 3, and now, like I said, it's all about ownership. So we're teaching you how to own your ideas.
So, man, I got a lot of questions from that. First of all, thank you for what you do for the community, because I'll be honest with you, even like back in the summertime last year, like I had no idea what you were up to. Like I would talk to you and I would check in with you and be like, hey, what's up, man? Like, how you doing?
Yep.
Like, and then you're like, and then I was in that Rosasante Studios, and there was like, hey, if you do this and play this game, you get this. I'm like, what? Like, I gotta go to work, man. Like, I'm like out here trying to hustle. And then when you kept telling me about the dads coming together, and I know I was in part of that project early on, Dapper Dinos, because Gary had sponsored them or something. And I was like, oh, it's dads, it's hanging out. I still didn't realize like what was happening. Now I'm finally starting to understand, okay, cool. Like they're building an education platform.
Oh, we're going to be the next generation of education. Like the Rockefellers had an idea. Now we have an idea. Like that's how big I think this is going to be. We're collaborating with people who can teach you financial literacy. We're collaborating with folks that are teaching you how to create games. Like what you see on our website is literally the tip of the iceberg of what we're actually working on. It's pretty incredible what will happen if you just have that vision like we were talking about, and you can communicate it with folks how much they want to help you build it.
So when you say build a project, like obviously your tokens, you already have the tokens, right? A lot of people, especially us newbies, we think, oh, part of it getting built is just having the tokens for sale. Then you buy the tokens and then something happens after that. And you get this. What you guys have already done that. You guys have that done. So now what you're doing is you're just hanging out and building community now. Like the tech is already kind of done. That part's done. Now you're just hanging out, and whether it's chat rooms, for lack of a better term, called Discord or Twitter, Twitter Spaces, this thing you call the metaverse, which we could do a whole other podcast on what you got going on in there. But it's basically just getting people from all over the world into a digital space and hanging out and talking with each other. So let me ask you this, because this is where the businessman in me tries to figure these things out. You're going to do this stuff anyway, because like you're passionate about it. You also have this project of like, obviously when people buy tokens, you obviously can raise money. What do you do? Are you going to do this stuff anyway? And then people are going to buy tokens, or people buy tokens and then you do more stuff? Like, is it the chicken or the egg mentality? Like, tell me about how the economics work. Yeah.
So part of it is also another revenue stream that we have is we actually launch projects for other people. So if you had an idea and you wanted to launch a project, yes, we will teach you how to do it. But if you're busy and you got things to do and you got a company to run, but you also want to do this other thing, we will help you launch your project. So that's another revenue stream that we have. The other part that you're talking about is what do you do with those funds as, like, not what do you do, but
like what's the purpose? Like what's the end goal? Yeah. Like why have I guess having a token is almost proof of concept that you could actually help someone with their token project, right?
Yep.
So it doesn't necessarily matter if you even sell tokens, right? Because you're actually going to be able to build a company that can help other people launch their own token, kind of similar to our buddy, Mikey, right? I mean, like his company, like I don't think he has a token project. He just has a company that helps build other people's projects.
Right.
So, yeah. So it's kind of like now this is kind of like, oh, if we want to buy early stock in the NFDaddys because they're going to go out and help all these other places, they're going to get, I'm just saying like, that's almost like a separate thing though, like a separate project, right? Almost like other than, so what is the purpose of like, what's the roadmap look like, I guess, for the NFDaddys as a token holder? Being a token holder. So I'm asking for myself too. Right now we're on that.
Yeah,
I'm just curious because I want to go buy more tokens because I believe in what you're doing.
Yeah, you're going to get access to more than the basic level courses. So as we enhance our knowledge base, we're going to enhance your knowledge base as a token holder first and foremost. There's plenty in the works as far as utility for the token, but we're still super early. Like that utility is going to be anything that we're involved in, we're going to get our token holders involved in somehow, some way, whether that's access to the projects that we're launching, access to other projects that we collaborate with, getting you involved in these higher education courses, things like that. Like that's the thing too about NFTs. And it's like, this is how I explain it to everybody. It's the loyalty card that never goes bad. Like it never goes bad. It's constantly there. It's always going to be there. And also too, like you have the ability to go out and create something with your NFT. So like if you're a savvy digital artist and you get an NFDaddys that's super rad and you got 20 or 30 of them and you want to create this like community in the digital world and you create a cartoon or something, like you have that ability to do that because you have IP rights over it. So, as a token holder, you own that piece of art, but now it's actually yours. And that's what we're trying to teach people, is the ownership piece of intellectual property and the public ledger that is the blockchain, and how powerful that is. You talk about, and I say this too, like, school fundraisers will never be the same once they figure out blockchain.
No, never.
Volunteer fire departments will never have another issue with a treasurer taking their money and scooting away with it. Like, you're never going to have those problems. And if you do, you're going to be able to siphon it right back to the person that did it, because everything's on a public ledger. There's no ambiguity. And I think that's the really powerful piece, and why I'm so passionate about NFTs and Web3 and cryptocurrency, is because there's finite amounts of things. There's caps to everything. Everything's visible. Everything's public. So there's no behind the closed door, behind the curtains, a little slicking here, a little slicking there. Like, none of that shit can happen.
Do you think that's why? But do you think that here's what's crazy about me? I actually think that's going to hurt the growth of NFTs in general early on, because there's so many seedy people out there that now that they realize it, they're like, oh crap, we can't do this. People can see us doing it. So, and because there's more bad people out there than good people, like, it's going to be we have a long road to hoe in this world, because the ones that are still in it are the good guys. Like, that's the thing about this whole, like, up and down. Like, guys like me and Ron Jordan, we're still in it because, like, we get it, and it's like, oh, it's like bliss. It's like almost like a utopian heaven. It is. An economy could live like this. I mean, government's not going to want you. The government doesn't want you to see this. Nope. Because part of the reason is because it's so transparent. Now, in an ideal world, we would want the government to be on the blockchain. Everything.
For sure.
You would be able to see, like, the way they vote, the way they spend their money, the way they do everything.
Wouldn't it be nice to have tokens inside of each one of your commissioner's wallets or your state representative wallet on how they voted on certain things throughout time? And, like, that's a public ledger that's going to be with them forever. Like, I think that's really important. I think that's the future of your job resume. You're going to get these tokens that live with you forever as your certifications. I really believe that.
Yeah, it's going to be like your street cred. It's going to be like, it's going to be your resume. It's going to be your, like, proof of, like, life and work. And again, because we are in a forgiving society, and because we want to give people second chances, I know you talk a lot about growth mindset. I talk a lot about it. It's okay that you had a flaw on the blockchain, as long as you can show that you've been working to do work to fix it. Right. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's called, like, stack it back up, like, start over again, and, like, do it in the right way, instead of, like, trying to use a bunch of, flashiness and a bunch of this and a bunch of that. It's like, oh man, like, this is real. Like, this isn't fake. Like, this isn't, like, a screenshot. Like, this isn't like someone trying to floss and be somebody else. Right. So it's super important that, people understand the technology of the blockchain. It's super important that people can just kind of understand where all of this kind of arrives. So it's really fascinating. I appreciate you sharing some of those insights. Go to NFDaddys.com for more information. I think you sell tokens for what, 0.07 Ethereum, right?
Yeah, which is like, I don't know.
Which right now, I don't have my calculator, right? It's $100. Now I bought it. I was
1,200 times 0.07. $84 you can
$84 you can be in, man. Call it $100 in case you got to get a little extra in there. But yeah,
you got a little gas action.
Yeah, for $100 you can be part of this community. And then what does someone do? Like, once they're a token holder, how do they get involved? Do they just hang out in the Discord and, like, look for updates, or?
Yeah, so you can get in touch with us. We hold meetings every month. We have a newsletter that we push out. So that's something that you can get involved with. But yeah, Discord is our main target. We also have a Twitter. We also have Instagram. We also have TikTok. So we push out content everywhere to draw attention to NFDaddys in general. But as a token holder, you'll want to be inside of Discord, Twitter, and inside of that newsletter. That way, you have up to date information on what we have going on, as far as metaverse events, podcasts that we're up to, events that we do. Like, we just came back from NFT NYC. We were over in NFT Miami. We went to VeeCon. Like, we're all over the place. So
well, that's a great
segue.
That's a great segue because I do want to wrap up the show and talk a little bit about VeeFriends and VeeCon. So first of all, tell me what got you into the VeeFriends community. You were instrumental in helping me pick out a few tokens. I know that. Yeah,
for sure. What drew me in, again, back to that Gary Vee mindset, was I got turned on to Gary Vee like whenever Sean was talking to me about growth mindset. So I knew about Gary. I was following him. I didn't follow him very much, but he was like coming up on my news feed again. So his algorithms were working. And I had heard him talk about these access, like getting access through NFTs. And I went back and forth in my head like 4 or 5 different times. I was like, all right, because I had a little bit of cash set aside to do something with. And I was like, you know what? Let me explore this a little bit further. And I started doing the research and I started understanding it a lot more. And then whenever he told me about, hang on one sec. Whenever he was telling us about access, like backstage passes or meet and greets with people through this verifiable piece of art, I was like, okay, so it's a backstage pass, basically. I get it. And it was in cryptocurrency, and I was already exploring crypto in general because I didn't understand, like, what happens when you mine something or what happens, I didn't understand any of that. So I was already down the rabbit hole. And whenever he brought it up, I was like, okay, I got it. And then I passed on it like 3 or 4 different times. I was like, I told my wife, I said, honey, I want to get into it, but I'm not there yet.
I said 12 times. The stories kept coming up, 5-5, 5-5, 5-5. And I'm like, no, I can't do it. Cause I know once I go in, I'm going to go all the way in.
Yep.
And finally, I think on 5-4, all right, I'm not missing out. Like, dude, Gary's been right on too many things. And he sucked me in, the marketing, I will tell I wouldn't even market his consistency and his conviction is what got me in.
Yeah, same here. He's not, and it was all about reputation. And I'm similarly going through that blueprint myself. Is like my rep's on the line. Like, this is who I am. This is our project, and like I went fully docs from the very beginning because I thought that was important to show established trust and establish the brand and all of those things that I've been learning for the last 15 years of my life about this growth mindset and building business, and through my MBA and learning all of that. It's just like, this was the culmination of all that now. And I believe in it. Like, I truly believe in it because of that conviction and that public transparency piece of it. So
what's that VeeFriend you got behind you? Is that one of the ones you own?
Yeah, that's a sentimental salamander. I used to own a turnt tick.
Yeah, I remember that.
I thought I was a flip guy, and then I flipped it and didn't realize royalties come out of that too. So I lost 12.5% on the sale and was not able to flip up like I wanted to. So yeah, now I got a sentimental salamander.
So that's your VeeFriend. Like, that's the one that gets you into VeeCon.
Yeah, this is from Meta Relics. If you're familiar with them, they'll bring your NFTs.
I think that's where I got the Hangout Hawk behind me at.
Yeah.
So talk to me about VeeCon. So that sentimental salamander got him a ticket to VeeCon, and then so you and your wife got to go to VeeCon. Tell us about your VeeCon experience, and, like, I don't know, give me a couple minutes. I know you could talk about it for 2 hours, but
yeah, absolutely. So my VeeCon experience was like I was on a mission. I was on a mission to learn from a few different individuals. I was on a mission to really network and grow NFDaddys is what my mission was. I wasn't there to party. I wasn't there to really have fun per se. Like, I was there to work, and that's what I did for the most part. Is I worked. I networked a ton. I did go to parties, but it wasn't to party.
I saw you at parties. Yeah, but the parties that we went to weren't parties like college parties. They were like, they had all like the feel of it if you didn't know any better, but like I hardly see anybody drinking. Like, there was barely any food at these parties because everybody was too busy talking.
Yep.
It was like, but it was still fun, right? Like, and some of them were a little bit loud, so sometimes they were harder to hear. But yeah, I definitely went just to network. You definitely went to network with more of a purpose for your project. I don't have a project, so I just got to go and hang out and say hi to people.
Yeah, but I mean, overall, the VeeCon itself was one that I would highly recommend that if you're looking into blockchain technology or if you're looking into NFTs, you should attend. Everybody there, super friendly. Everybody there is like very inviting and warm and courteous. There was only like one instance where things got a little bit crazy with the merchandise, but like other than that, everybody's super well behaved. There's nothing to that your family couldn't go to. Like it was just really wholesome. If I'm going to break it down,
it reminded me of going to like a church youth group with a bunch of old people that were like having a really good time. It was like, it reminded me of like a really progressive church youth group that is like just a bunch of, I don't know. It's like a bunch of people from Chick-fil-A's Rockstar like event. Like,
yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Then, like you could play video games upstairs, cornhole downstairs, and then go eat in the middle. Yeah, like
very wholesome. Like I loved it, dude. I was like a kid in a candy store, man. Like I was like, dude, it was so awesome.
And then the concerts were good too. Like they had super good concerts in the evening. So like whenever you wanted to let your hair down and you wanted to go out, like they had concerts that you could go to that were fun. But yeah, overall experience. I'll be back next year.
I can't wait.
I hope they do something about lines and those types of things, and they put it in a smaller arena. But other than that, it was good.
Ron Jordan's got ideas, Gary. If you're listening, I think that next year we'll probably work on that. I think part of it though is, Gary's always doing human experiments, and if he sees people wait in line that long, he knows they'll wait in line for other stuff, and he knows that there's a demand, and I think he likes to see that demand. I think I think that feeds the beast, and I think I saw those lines. I would go up to the people in the front of that line. They'd be on the ground. Like it was reminding me of like 1998, 1999 tickets when like concert tickets would go on sale or baseball, like World Series or Super Bowl tickets. And you'd have to line outside the mall and like go in a line around, and people are staying there overnight. And I would interview these people and I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, don't you think you'll run into them somewhere else? Like, why are you going to spend 5 hours and just sit here and wait for the man to show up for a quick autograph? Now, in saying that, like, I've already met the man a few times, so like it was easy for me to say, but I'm like, there's so much to do out here. How can you sit in line for 5 hours? But I think if they come up with like a buddy system where like you wait in line, come out, you get to go hang out, your buddy comes back, then you leave, and then the pizza guy comes and delivers you a pizza. Because like, what do you do about going to the bathroom? That's what I was thinking. I was like, but because everyone's so nice and sweet, I think as long as you form the line and stay there for 20 minutes, you can kind of come and go as you wanted.
Yeah, probably.
Because everyone's so nice. Like, I don't think anybody can even get mad at each other. Like, I didn't see it happen. It was like a one-of-a-kind place where like, it was just happy the whole time I was there. But all right, well, let's wrap this up. One of the things that I always do is ask all the guests 5 questions. All right. So, and here's the kind of premise for it, because I've had to put premises in because people overthink it. I'm shipping you off to an island. Okay. Completely by yourself. Okay. Completely by yourself. You're there. There may never be mankind again. I don't know. Don't ask me any questions. What book are you taking with you? You got one book. You're only allowed to pack your suitcase with one book. What book are you taking with you? Mr. Growth Mindset Guy.
One book.
What's your favorite book that you want to take with you?
Can I take a series? I'm just going to take a series. I'm going to take.
Tell you what, see, there's always these guys, and every what series?
The Expanse Series. So that like the Expanse. Yeah. That's one I would do.
What is that about for the people listening at home? That's the first time we ever got that one. I heard it earlier, but what is earlier? Yeah. Right.
It's a sci-fi book. Basically, like your
so it's
sci-fi.
Entertaining.
It's very entertaining. Very, it's
so
something that I read whenever I want to go away.
It's not expanding your mind into growth mindset more. It's more just for pure entertainment because it's going to have to keep you engaged. All right, cool. Love it. Yep. All right, what movie are you taking with you?
Oh, man. Movie Rookie of the Year.
Oh wow, look at you, baseball guy. So crazy, man. Like, man, I feel like me and you had the same childhood. We didn't even like I love that movie too.
Oh, it's the best.
But I was also nerding out on video games and computers and then trying to play sports. Yeah, it was wild. I was all over the place. Yeah. All right, so I did book, I did movie. All right, what restaurant are you putting on the island? It could be something like that you love, something famous, not so famous, hole in the wall. What restaurant you putting on the island?
Burger King.
All right, I think that's the first time I got Burger King, but hey, it's well, you're gonna have it your way. So I mean, right? Like,
Yo, listen, if you're
have it your way,
if you're gonna have fast food, you may as well have it flame broiled like it's from the grill, and it's good. I like it.
But you can have any restaurant in the world. You're picking Burger King. I just want you to make sure you're hanging on to that. I like that about you.
Yeah,
I like that. All right, yeah, because you can get shakes, you can get like chicken, you can get burgers, you can get. Now my kid, listen, Sammy loves. Is it called the chicken fries?
Oh yeah,
dude. He's like, Dad, give me an order of chicken fries, regular fries, and a 10-piece nugget.
Yeah,
I'm like,
he's like. Does he eat the sauce with the chicken fries?
No,
too?
He doesn't eat any sauce. No, he's not a sauce.
He's
guy.
a savage.
He'll do ketchup with fries, but that's about it. Yeah, no sauce.
Word.
But Burger King's definitely his favorite fast food. So like you and him would get along well.
Perfect.
All right, and then what's the other? Oh, so you're allowed to take one trip. You're allowed to go anywhere in the world for a week. Where do you go?
Ooh, I think Australia.
All right. Have you ever been there?
No.
Ooh, nice. All right. Do you know that I am friends with 2 people from Australia through the Hangout Hawks?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and one of them actually came to VeeCon. The other one had gotten married and was pregnant and I think had a baby, so she couldn't come. But
okay.
Yeah, I have 2 new friends now that I actually talk to on a regular basis, kind of just about as often as I talk to you, about once or twice a month. And yeah, Australia. So like anytime that you really want to go, yeah, he owns a cactus farm, John Hall. Anyway. All right, last question. You're allowed to get one person to come to this island for 24 hours. It could be past, present, future. Who's coming?
I want to say Tom Hanks.
Now, that's funny. Is he bringing Is he bringing Wilson with him too?
Yeah, he's bringing Wilson too.
And then when he has to, yeah, okay. But that's Tom Hanks would probably definitely be the guy to talk to if you're like stuck on an island.
Yeah.
All right, well, is that your final answer?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with it.
All right, no, that's a funny answer. Very thoughtful, Roger. You are definitely a thoughtful human being. So, listen, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. I know that if people follow me for any period of the future, that you will definitely be back on. I'm excited too to be a little bit more intentional now that I've got out of the whole ADHD like shiny little object NFT project thing. Now I'm going to be able to focus, hunker down on a couple different projects. Yours is definitely going to be one of them.
My man.
Just because I love what you're building. And I love the fact that there's a team that I can trust, because I don't have the patience or the, I think I don't have like the personality for teaching the same way that you guys do. And I really love that. And I kind of want more of that, but I want to have a place where I can send people. Because people always want to ask me, I'm like, I'm not a good teacher. Like I wouldn't even tell you to do as I do, because I have my own system.
Me either.
Yeah, no, like I'm wild and crazy, man.
But like, does all the time. Trust me.
Yeah, because I mean, like a lot of people can't handle that, but I have a method to my madness. But
you do.
Yeah, for people that want to take it slow, take it easy, and learn at their own pace. Like, yeah, you get in with Marcus and Steven.
Yeah, it's taken us 6 months, almost. Well, 8 months almost, and it's going to probably be another 2 more months before we actually launch that community project, because we've wanted to get people through that program at like a really slow pace. So if like you come in now, we want you to be able to go back and be able to watch everything and come into it thoughtfully.
All right, that's awesome. Thanks again for your time today. What is the best way to get a hold of you? Twitter?
The best way to get a hold of me, Twitter is The Stars Podcast. If you're over on Instagram, it's stars_podcast. And then if you want to just like check out our websites, you can go to nfdaddys.com, nfdaddys.io. You can also go over to thestarspodcast.com, catch up on all the recent episodes over there.
Awesome. Thanks again for being here. And if you got any value out of this podcast, I'm really bad about promoting my own podcast. Please like, subscribe. I don't know where I'm pointing. I'm trying to do what everybody else does. Just send me an email. Let me know that you're liking this stuff, because we've had all kinds of different people on, especially in the NFT community. So I look forward to doing a couple more of these interviews this summer. We'll be back next week. Same place, same channel. See you again.
Thank you for listening to the Big Fish Cares podcast.